festive season. Prime Minister Modi had heralded the dawn of next-gen GST reforms from the ramparts of the Red Fort during his Independence Day speech. So here's what happened. The GST Council, India's apex decision-making body on GST, has decided to scrap the 12% and the 28% tax slabs. The Council's rationale remains that this rationalization exercise of moving to a two-slab structure will make compliance easier and boost consumption. There is a tax slab for 40% GST as well, but it would be limited to sin and super luxury goods. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who is the chair of the GST Council, said that the call to cut rates was a unanimous one and that there was no disagreement among states. Nearly 99% goods which were previously in the 12% slab have been now shifted to the 5% slab. The new rates will apply from the 22nd of September. Now, this is the important date. It is the start of Navratri. These products include daily essentials like toothpaste, toilet soaps, footwear below 2,500 rupees, fertilizers, tractors, electric vehicles, finished textile products. Now, let's focus on the 18% GST slab. Around 90% products that were earlier in the 28% have been moved to 18% slab. This includes cement, small cars, television, bikes with engine capacity below 350cc, air conditioners, refrigerators, among others. Individual health and life insurance premium, which were earlier in the 18% slab, have now been exempt from GST. But industry fears costs will rise without benefits under the inverted duty structure. Input tax credit, the centre is bracing for a revenue impact of close to 48,000 crore due to this overhaul. To take this discussion forward, I'm now joined by a panel of current and past FICCI executives. Anant Goenka, Vice Chairman, RPG Group; Naina Lal Kidwai, Chairperson, Rothschild and Company India; and the India Sanitation Coalition. Also on the program with us is Manish Sharma, Chairman of Panasonic Life Solutions, India and South Asia. Thank you very much for joining us. Ms. Kidwai, let me begin by asking you, overall, how does this improve sentiments, unleash the best festive spirit, and also, will this lead to a greater private capex cycle in the coming months and years as well?
Parikshit, thank you for having us on the show. I can only say that the mood has been celebratory, as you have heard from last night, and with due cause, because what it suggests is consumption goes up. And to your question on capex, if consumption goes up, capacities of industry get filled, and therefore capex goes up. So the big boost that comes to consumption and demand will drive the capex cycle, will drive demand, will in fact hopefully also drive sentiment, whether across markets or in individual pockets. I think beyond just what it does to the demand and capex cycle is the simplification that comes with this. Less confusion, less appeals, and even if there are appeals, the declaration of an appellate tribunal to ease whatever discrepancies still remain. But I do think that this is a huge move to what is primarily a two-tiered structure, barring the 40% sin goods, and the simplification across the board, or an attempt at that, is definitely cause for celebration. So yes, bodes very well for festival spirits going forward.
Right. Anant, if I were to ask you, what kind of an uptick are you expecting in terms of demand? You know, especially when it comes to the entry-level buyers, the sentiment had been rather muted for the past many months. Are you now bracing for an uptick in the festive season and a sustained uptick in the wedding season as well?
Absolutely. I think the timing could not have been better. We have the end of the month and end of quarter coming in after the 22nd of September. Anyways, about 50% of sale happens in the last week of the month. So to that extent, we will see a big uptick towards the end of September. Then you have Diwali and you have the marriage season. So with all of that combined, I do think quarter three should be far better. Putting in 10% in the hands of the customer is a huge amount when you're looking at many duties coming down from 28% to 18%. So to that extent, with that much money or price reduction happening, it will make a big difference in demand going forward.
Right. But looking at the current economic situation and high US tariffs as well, will companies be ready to pass on the benefit immediately?
No, absolutely. I think it is our duty to pass on the benefit. We will pass on the benefit to the consumer. The government has clearly mandated that this is for the customer. So as soon as possible, the benefits will be passed on. There is some inventory that may be with trade, so there could be some delays in terms of a few weeks, but at least from the company side, we will be passing on the entire amount. There are certain areas such as, sachet prices for FMCG products, which are priced at 1 rupee, say for the last 15, 20 years. What will happen to those areas? I think they're talking about volume increase, which they've done in the past, where GST rates have got changed. So I think those are some sticky areas where pricing is very sensitive from a consumer mindset perspective. But otherwise, the intent is to pass on everything on day one.
Right. And Manish, if I were to come to you, when I look at the list of electronic items, I think a majority of them now come in the 18% bracket. How will this lead to a drop in prices? How and where all can customers expect price cuts in the weeks to come? And what is the average percentage of price reduction you're looking at?
I think the average percentage of price reduction will be about 7 to 7.5%, which will be the cascading impact logically of the 10% reduction which has happened. And I'm looking at this as a unlock, which was much due. And if you carefully look at all the consumer durables, I believe barring 32 inches and below, almost all were falling in 28% bracket. And the argument always was such that how do you look at unleashing this huge potential? Air conditioners, for instance, still continue to be about 7.5% penetration ratio in the country. So in my opinion, this is going to unlock that potential. And second, this whole process is not only going to be like products being more affordable for people. I think a lot of people will look at upgrading their whole lifestyle. In the situation where 32 inches and below were falling into 18% and the higher screen sizes were 28%. So that is getting bridged. So people would rather upgrade themselves to higher screen sizes and better energy efficient air conditioners for their purchasing decisions. So from my point of view, I think this is going to be a significant milestone when we will look back after a few years to unlock and unleash this whole potential, which always was ahead of us.
Manish, when it comes to consumer goods, what was the segment of the population which you felt was not coming to showrooms to make these purchases or big ticket purchases, those who were holding back and which you now hope to tap?
It's very clear. If you look at last 10 or 15 years and look at the spread month-wise, which happens on an annual level, while the sale is starting to become more flatter, there used to be a time people used to wait for their bonuses to get dispersed, and therefore Diwali used to be like very peak of the annual sale. With the advent of e-commerce and more reasons for people to make their purchasing decisions, the sales is becoming more flatter during the year. And there used to be people, there's a very large segment of consumers who would be like fence sitters, if I can use that term, during a summer season. And if at all the weather patterns are such that they can postpone their purchasing decisions to the next summer, I think those are some of the consumers who I believe would look at pulling their purchasing decisions up. So as I said, I think at the level of penetration where the country stands for majority of these products, this will be a huge unlock. And this is going to have a cascading impact on the supply side also. If you look at electronics, I mean, into televisions, into air conditioners, there are electronic controllers. And with rising economies of scale for all these products, country will be in a better position to like backward integrate at a faster speed. So I think this is going to have cascading impacts in the time to come.
All right, a cascading impact in the times to come. And Ms. Kidwai, if I were to ask you about how does this improve the investor sentiment when it comes to India? Now, reducing GST, reducing the number of rates, simplifying GST, making it a good and simple tax, that had been the demand of the industry for the past 8 years. This has now finally happened. The eventual ask is maybe have one nation, one rate. But how will this improve sentiments in the near and medium term?
Anything that improves or there's an expectation that it will improve the bottom line of companies improves investor sentiment. And I think what we're hearing here is that demand goes up. So you see top lines increasing. There's cost inputs, which look well contained for other reasons, including the lower inflation. And except for the shocks that might come from the tariff regime, domestic industries that are not impacted by exports are certainly going to gain. And if the bottom line improves, so does investor sentiment. I think there's a second angle here, which is interesting, which is the GST impact on infrastructure. The green sectors, all of these benefit from a lowering of GST on cement, on construction materials, on input costs in very critical sectors for the country. So to that extent, even input costs for projects, affordability, housing projects, real estate, which inevitably also drives growth, also impacts investor sentiment positively.
Right. The other question that I'd like to ask you, though the government has made it clear that this exercise of GST reduction was not linked to US tariffs in any way, but does this offset the impact to some extent, Ms. Kidwai?
I believe it does in terms of sentiment. Unfortunately, it may not impact sector for sector completely, because we know that some sectors, textiles, diamonds, leather, those that were largely export oriented out of the country to the US, and we do have other markets other than the US, fortunately, but those folks are clearly still struggling to understand how to cope with the impact of tariffs. They will benefit from the GST reduction, because for many of their goods, in terms of domestic GST rates, it has come down. So maybe some level of relief will come to them to the extent that the domestic market buoyancy makes up for the loss of export. But it's going to really be a case of wait and see whether the full impact can be made up to them. The timing in terms of announcements, I think these two things were moving in parallel. But if it pushed our government to make this announcement early, then it's very laudable, because it does negate what was the negative effect of tariffs offshore. And it shows that our government is serious about looking across the economy and ensuring that buoyancy that we've been seeing comes back and comes back full force.
All right. Anant, if I can come back to you. Now, when it comes to seeking clarifications, there is a concern among, say, automotive dealers for that matter, that what happens to the compensation cess that they have already been billed for. You know, while they're buying inventory from car companies, they have paid the GST, they have paid the compensation cess. Now, customers are not going to buy those vehicles, or may not come to buy those vehicles, at least till the 22nd, till the GST changes are implemented. And they could lose out on that compensation cess, and that could be to the tune of 2,500 crores. So there is concern what happens to that. Would there be any clarifications that you are seeking from the government right now?
Yeah, it's too early to say specifically. I think we will work with the dealer body, and if there is a need to make a plea to the government, certainly we will do so to get some clarification on that matter. But just a point at a bigger picture level, what is really exciting is that we think that this is a very critical point in India's reform journey. I think it is a very big step that has been taken, and there are various other steps that have been announced, such as the 1 lakh crore innovation fund or the national manufacturing mission. So where the investor confidence or business confidence comes in is that now a lot of what was announced is coming into action, and there is a higher sense of urgency that we are seeing to take quick action and big action. And therefore, in my view, this is just the start of large reform that can come in for businesses.
Right. Manish, to ask you, when you spoke about supply side improvements, do you expect consumer goods companies like yours to start investing more in capacity, in market expansion as well, because you will have many more buyers now coming into the system, and penetration of consumer goods also increasing?
Yeah, Parikshit, the answer is yes. If you look at the decade gone by, I mean, when it comes to Panasonic, we have invested into at least 5 greenfield factories, air conditioners being one, refrigerators, washing machines, and two wiring devices. And so is the case with our industry peers as well. And again, from a policy standpoint, if you look at last 10 years, I believe that a structured approach has happened. Initially came policies like MSIPs, which were providing capex-oriented subsidies, and subsequently came incentives to do component manufacturing like specs, and then finally came PLI. And we have to look at this from a bigger or a distance which defines such that this is a holistic action plan in place, both on the supply side and the demand side. And if you look at last 5 years, for example, again, I'll take the example of air conditioners. The weighted impact of PLI in air conditioners was about 5% to 4.5%, which led to significant value creation happen in the country from a level of 20% domestic value addition in 2021. Today, we stand at 65% domestic value addition happening in air conditioners industry. And then when you couple that potential 4.5% impact on air conditioners cost coming in through such incentives, with another 7.5% odd going as a price benefit to consumers, I think both coupled together will lead to a very good output.
All right, Manish Ahuja, Naina Lal Kidwai and Anant Goenka, thank you very much for joining us on the program. It was a pleasure speaking to you about the GST reform and how this will boost sentiment and also the investor view on India. We're taking a short break. On the other side, we will be joined by FADA President CS Vigneshwar and TVS Motor Company's two-wheeler business president Gaurav Gupta to discuss the impact of GST rate cuts on the auto sector. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's now focus specifically on the auto sector. Automobile stocks were in top gear today, hitting the highest level in nearly a year as the GST cut on small cars and bikes lift sentiment. The effective tax rate on SUVs and luxury cars will also drop to 40% as the compensation cess will go away. Two-wheelers with engine capacity below 350cc will become cheaper as they move to the 18% category. However, two-wheelers makers fear higher taxes on big bikes could adversely impact the segment. Joining us right now are CS Vigneshwar, President of the Federation of Automobile Dealers with us, and TVS Motor Company's Gaurav Gupta also on the program. Remember, TVS has announced the launch of the TVS NTORQ 150, which it claims is India's quickest hyper-sport scooter. I'm going to go to our guests one by one. Let me go across to Gaurav Gupta first. Gaurav, a big launch by TVS. You've got the new NTORQ, which has hit the market. How do you see this coinciding with the news of GST reduction from 28 to 18% for two-wheelers.
Well, thank you, Parikshit. It's a special day for us. The NTOP 150, brings in our racing DNA and racing heritage into the performance. And rightly said, it is the quickest scooter that is there in India, going up to 0 to 60 in about 6.3 seconds. I also want to take the opportunity to talk about what it brings as a great package in terms of, fantastic styling, which is built by the stealth aircrafts. It's got an arrowhead front. It builds in, motorcycle-inspired handlebars. It's got a, telescopic headlight. It's got a special T rear lamp as well. Great performance in terms of, I talked about the speed, but it also brings in, higher technology levels in terms of it's got, TCS, it's got traction control, it's got ABS, it's got a cluster which has got 50 plus connected features. So overall, a perfect hyper scooter overall. And to answer your question, it is a special day for everyone, I would say, across the country today. The Bonanza, the gift of the government of India is really, really applauded and we respect it. And exciting times, and especially for us, a new launch as well as a new terrain going forward.
Right. Gaurav, now coming specifically to the question of GST, what is the kind of price reduction you're looking at across your portfolio? By when do you expect to announce any price changes, if any, that you decide?
I think, let me put this way, that the entire big step of the government of India is really, really encouraging. This will really boost growth. It will empower a higher buying power in the hands of the middle class customers in the country. And more importantly, will accelerate the journey towards Viksit Bharat, the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister to 2047. And in line with that, whatever has been outlined by the GST Council, we will, of course, follow the same guidelines and take it forward to our customers. The effective date is September 22nd, and we will follow the same as well.
All right. So you will follow 22nd September, which is a Navratri date for any new prices that may kick in. Let me now get in CS Vigneshwar on a very important issue. Gaurav, I'll request you to stay with us. Mr. Vigneshwar, now, on the issue of compensation cess, this is going to be an important one for automotive dealers, especially those at the top end segment. Is there any appeal that has gone out from FADA to the government? And could you just explain us the problem that some of the automotive dealers are facing? You're on mute, sir.
Yes, thanks for having us over. I really appreciate it. The issue of compensation cess is something which is very important, and we probably need to look into it. We are writing to the government as we speak, and we are seeking clarity there, because compensation cess at the end of the day was supposed to be paid by the end user, and we are in the middle of the channel and we can't bear the brunt. So as you mentioned before, the compensation cess, roughly, it's upwards of 2,500 crores right now with dealers. And honestly speaking, we can't afford it. Our business is a wafer-thin margin business, as probably even Gaurav notes. And we really can't afford these huge cesses, especially on large vehicles, if they're charged on dealers. So the government needs to look into ways in which this can be mitigated, and we need to move on. Because this new GST regime is fantastic. It's great for the medium term and the long term in terms of the aspiration customer being able to afford vehicles. And we also been having a lot of headwind in the entry-level two-wheeler, four-wheeler segments. And with this price reduction, I think it brings the vehicles closer to a customer owning them. But the compensation cess at dealerships is huge. It needs to be mitigated by the government.
Right. So if we understand correctly, you've already paid GST for your inventory, for every car, every scooter that you have bought from your OEM. And on top of that, state level cess or segment level cess that was also applicable. And now, if you don't sell these vehicles that are already there in your inventory till the 22nd of September to the customer, you will not be able to retrieve and get back the cess amount.
Absolutely, you're right. So in case we're not able to get the cess amount after the 22nd, the government has to find a way in which we can be credited this amount, because it's going to be quite catastrophic for dealers. And when we're starting off a new journey, especially with this milestone GST reform, I don't think we can start off with a limp. We need to get off the blocks running. And but this success, if not compensated at the dealer point after the 22nd, would be a sandbag on our shoulders.
Right. And could you give us a sense of whether you're looking to make a representation to the government? Have you already sent a representation to the finance ministry?
We'll be sending a representation by end of day. We're working on that.
All right. So FADA, they're saying they will be sending a representation to the government to resolve this compensation cess issue. Let me now go back to Gaurav at this stage. Gaurav, two questions. One, can OEMs and dealers find a way out? Because compensation cess, as they're pegging it, of around 2,500 crores is not a small amount. This is going to cause a lot of burden on dealers across the country. Can OEMs and dealers find a way out around this?
I would say, Parikshit, this would need to be studied, and the implications have to be understood better, depending on the category and the kind of scale and size where it has impacted. And I'm sure that the respective authorities will come together to find the right solution and then take it forward. But at this point in time, to give a clear direction on what this is will be difficult. But I'm very optimistic that the effective parties, the stakeholders will come together to resolve this.
Gaurav, now just to ask you about the kind of immediate uptick you're expecting in the two-wheeler segment, especially the entry-level commuter segment, which had seen subdued demand. Could you give us a sense, a ballpark figure that you're expecting an uptick in the festive season and also for the full year fiscal?
No, I would say, Parikshit, we were looking forward to the festive season because, the macro fundamentals were supportive. The monsoons were encouraging. The reservoirs have good water storage. The repo rates were all supporting the momentum. And this special Diwali gift will really accelerate the entire growth and, more importantly, bring in and make two-wheelers more accessible. At the same time, also help people upgrade their choices. So overall, it is definitely the right direction. I would say that more than numbers, I think the entire momentum, the euphoria, it will not just be a great Diwali, it will possibly be the best Diwali ever, as well as a continued Diwali is what I feel will be there for the industry. And I'm looking forward to it. Our industry is looking forward to this. And I'm sure all the consumers in the country as well are looking forward to this. So really, in all ways, is the right step forward. Simplification, encouraging growth, and boosting demand.
All right. So continued Diwali is what you're saying. And hopefully there will be a resolution to some of the concerns that Federation of Automobile Dealers, especially Mr. Vigneshwar, their president, has also made. We leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. That's a wrap on this edition of GST Centimeter. But don't go anywhere. Our special coverage continues on the other side. Hello, welcome to our special GST Centimeter on the auto sector. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Let's also now get you the focus on the auto sector, which was in top gear today, with stocks hitting the highest level in nearly a year. Here's why. GST cut on small cars and bikes lifted sentiment. Small cars and two-wheelers below 350cc will now attract a GST of 18%. SUVs and luxury cars will now be taxed at 40% GST, with the cess component being done away with. I caught up with R.C. Bhargav, Maruti Suzuki chairman, to get a sense of what it means for their company and the sector at large.
Well, I think this major reform by the government is going to make not only a big difference to the automobile industry, but is going to make a big difference to the economy as a whole. Certainly, the small car segment is the big beneficiary. It will, I assume, from the 22nd of September onwards, our expectation is that we will start getting into about 10% growth a year instead of the current stagnation and decline. I believe the automobile industry, as a result, will also move away from its 1%, 2% growth and get into a 6-7% growth as a whole.
Right. So you're saying you're expecting 10% growth in FY26?